You've seen her. The snake-haired woman. The stare that turns you to stone. Versace's logo. The Me Too symbol. The misunderstood feminist icon who was punished for being a victim. And that last one? The tragic priestess, violated by Poseidon, cursed by Athena for a crime committed against her. Yeah, that version is about 700 years too late to be the original. Here's the thing about Medusa that nobody on TikTok is going to tell you, because it makes a messier story than any clean girl boss revenge narrative allows. There are at least 2 Medusas, and they're completely different characters.
One was born a monster. The other was turned into one. And neither version is wrong, because Greek mythology has no canon, no official version, no sacred text that beats all the others. So today, we're going back to the sources. We're going to meet the real Medusa. All of her. The monster, the victim, the weapon, and the symbol. And by the end, you might realize the myth you thought you knew is not the one the ancient Greeks were telling.
All right, let's time travel. Because to understand this mess, you need to understand that Medusa has 2 completely different origin stories. And they come from 2 completely different authors who lived centuries apart and had 2 completely different agendas. Version A. Meet Hesiod, about 700 BCE, archaic Greece.
Hesiod wrote something called the Theogony, basically the ancient Greek version of a creation myth family tree. In it, Medusa is born a monster. Full stop. No transformation, no tragedy, no beautiful maiden. She's the daughter of Phorcys and Ceto, 2 primordial sea deities whose entire job description was produce horrifying creatures. Seriously, their family reunion gave us the Gorgons, the Graea, 3 old ladies sharing 1 eye and 1 tooth between them, and Echidna, who was half woman, half snake, and the mother of literally every monster in Greek mythology.
Medusa has 2 sisters, Steno and Euryale, and all 3 of them are Gorgons from birth. They've got tusks, bronze claws, golden wings, and yes, snakes for hair. But here's the crucial detail. Medusa is the only one who's mortal. Her sisters can't be killed. She can. And what about Poseidon? Oh, Hesiod mentions him. 1 line. Poseidon lay with Medusa in a soft meadow among spring flowers. That's it. No temple, no assault, no curse. 2 monsters in a field. The result? Pegasus and Chrysaor, the winged horse and the golden sword-wielding warrior who literally spring from her neck when Perseus beheads her. So in version A, Medusa is a monster, always was a monster, and her story is about killing a monster. End of story.
Version B, enter Ovid, about 8 CE, Imperial Rome. Now we're 7 centuries later. Rome. Augustus is emperor, and a poet named Ovid has just been exiled to the edge of the Roman Empire for something he did that deeply offended the emperor. Nobody knows exactly what, but it probably involved the emperor's daughter and some political scandal.
Ovid is furious. He writes a massive poem called the Metamorphoses. It's about change, transformation, and it's also, and this is important, about how those in power abuse that power. In Ovid's version, Medusa is not born a monster. She's a beautiful young woman. Her most striking feature is her hair. Golden, flowing, the kind of hair poets write poems about. She's so beautiful that suitors come from all over just to catch a glimpse of her. Now, in Ovid's poem, she's not explicitly called a priestess, That detail got added by later retellings. But she's in the temple of Minerva. That's Athena's Roman name. When Poseidon, Neptune in Roman, sees her and assaults her right there in the sacred space. And what happens next is the part that makes modern audiences furious. Athena doesn't punish Poseidon. She punishes Medusa. She turns her hair into snakes. She makes her face so horrifying that anyone who looks at her turns to stone. The victim becomes the monster.
Now, and this is where it gets fascinating. Ovid was not writing this because he was documenting Greek religion. He was writing political satire. He had been crushed by an emperor who exiled him for life. His Metamorphoses consistently portrays the gods as cruel, petty, and abusive toward mortals. Medusa is not the only innocent who gets destroyed by divine power in his poem. She's one of many. So version B, Medusa is a victim of gods who use mortals as playthings, and Ovid is using her story to say something about power, Roman power specifically. Here's the answer. Both. Neither. It's the wrong question. Greek mythology is not like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There is no canon. There is no Kevin Feige sitting in a room deciding which version is the official one. These were stories told orally for centuries, changing with every village, every poet, every political moment. Hesiod's version is older, by about 700 years. So if you want to play the which came first game, Monster Medusa wins. She was never human. She was never beautiful. She was never a priestess. She was born with snakes on her head and tusks in her mouth, and there was no tragic backstory. Ovid's version is a Roman retcon, a deliberate rewrite. He took a monster and turned her into a tragedy because it served his purpose. He wanted to make the gods look bad, and boy did it work. Ovid's Medusa is now, by far, the more famous version. But here's the twist. The ancient Greeks themselves would not have recognized Ovid's tragic Medusa. To them, Medusa wasn't a victim. She wasn't a symbol of injustice. She was a monster, and her severed head was one of the most powerful protective symbols in the entire ancient world. Which brings us to what actually happens after she dies, because the story doesn't end when Perseus swings the blade. So Perseus, with help from Athena and Hermes, beheads Medusa while she's sleeping, using a polished bronze shield as a mirror so he doesn't meet her gaze directly. Classic hero stuff. But then things get weird. From her severed neck, two fully formed beings burst out. Pegasus, the winged horse, and Chrysaor, a warrior with a golden sword. Because remember, she was pregnant by Poseidon. Even as a monster, she was carrying the sea god's children. Perseus stuffs the head in a magical bag and goes on a victory tour that is, honestly, one of the most metal victory laps in mythology. He flies over Libya, and drops of Medusa's blood become the venomous snakes that infest the desert. He turns the Titan Atlas into a mountain, the Atlas Mountains in North Africa, just by showing him the head. He rescues Andromeda from a sea monster by pulling out the head and petrifying the creature mid-strike. There's a coral reef in the Red Sea that ancient writers said was formed from the monster's petrified body. He returns home to find his mother being forced to marry the king who sent him on this suicide mission in the first place, Polydectes. Perseus walks into the throne room, says, "You wanted a gift? Here it is," and turns the king and his entire court to stone. And then, finally, he gives the head to Athena, and Athena puts it on her shield,
or her breastplate, or her armor, the Aegis.
And this is where the symbol outgrows the story entirely. Because the Gorgonion, the severed head of Medusa, became one of the most common protective symbols in the ancient Mediterranean world. You find it on temple pediments, on coins, on doorways, on soldier shields. The thing that was supposed to be the ultimate horror became the ultimate ward against evil. It's like hanging a picture of the scariest thing imaginable on your front door and going, there. Now nothing worse than this can come in. The monster became the guardian.
So who was Medusa really? She was a monster, born to monster parents at the edge of the world, if you ask Hesiod. She was a beautiful woman, destroyed by gods who should have protected her, if you ask Ovid. She was a weapon, a protector, a symbol so powerful that people stamped it onto their coins and their doorways for centuries after her myth was first told, if you ask the archaeologists. And maybe that's the actual point. Myths aren't Wikipedia articles. They're not consistent. They evolve because the people telling them evolve. Hesiod's Greece needed monsters to conquer. Ovid's Rome needed stories about corrupt power. And modern audiences, well, we seem to need a Medusa who was wronged, who was turned into something terrifying by forces beyond her control, and whose image we can reclaim.
Every generation gets the Medusa it deserves. Next week, we're ranking the gods of the dead. Anubis versus Hades versus Hell. Whoever loses probably isn't going to be happy about it. See you then. If you enjoyed this, subscribe, because we're just getting started and the ancient world has way more secrets that your high school textbook definitely skipped.